So we've now mapped out our process. We've mapped out the new hire journey, rather. We've talked about scorecards. We've talked about methodology. So now that we have all those elements in place, now we can construct our training program. So our training program is going to be constructed around the steps that our customer has to complete in order to buy from us. And then it's going to be constructed around the methodology in which how we want our reps to interface with our buyers, or if it's recruiter training, recruiters, and how we want them to interface with the candidates. So, quick question for you. If I'm a fresh college grad and I just got a job with your company, and Monday's my first day and I get ready to go through training, am I going to get pretty much like an information dump on the company and CRM, ATS training and services? Is that fair to say? Or, yep, all right, I'm seeing a lot of heads bobbing. And is it fair to say that y'all wish maybe your salespeople would sell, quote unquote, more consultatively? In other words, maybe have more business-oriented conversations and ask more questions to learn more about the buyer? Is that fair to say? I see some heads bobbing. Okay, so Jerry started to touch on this earlier. The reason why reps go into broadcast and pitch mode when they hit the phones is because they're being trained, their company accolades and who they are and what they do. So that's the only thing they know to talk about. They've been oriented to come from that place when they engage a buyer. So the first thing when you're building out a program, you want to think about teaching them who your buyers are and understanding, so we talk about defining the target market. This is just a simple screenshot from some of the classes from our methodology to give you an idea. But you need to understand who your buyers are, what's important to them, how are they evaluated, how are they measured, where do they go for information, what are they going to value so that you can understand how to build a value proposition that's going to actually connect with them. So a value proposition is not who we are, what do we do, why we're so great. It needs to speak to them and what's important to them. And that requires taking some time up front to understand those customers and who you're calling on. So really, really important that we're taking that. And when you do that, that now orients, if that's a word, orients your sales reps to be coming from a place when they're making their calls to be helping their customers and to be providing ideas and to consult with them to help them do their job more effectively so that when they have a staffing need, you're going to be top of mind. Now, the other thing, when we talk about regimented and milestone, one thing I've definitely learned through training is one skill at a time. We all want to, again, we touched at this at the beginning, information through a fire hose because we're thinking about time to market and we just want to get our reps productive as quickly as possible. The problem is people don't learn that way. And I know when I first got into management and I was coaching reps, I was giving them 18 different things to work on at once. And I didn't realize it at the time until a little bit later in life and kind of realized it's too much. Their heads are spinning. So you need to take your training and you need to break it down into really small, bite-sized, modular pieces. Focus on one skill at a time. And then the next thing is, again, Jerry mentioned this at the beginning, a lot of our customers say, well, how long will it take my reps to get through training? Well, you can get through it in a matter of weeks, but it doesn't mean they're going to actually be able to execute. So you want to roll it out, and you don't really want to roll in the next class until your reps have demonstrated that they can execute, what was taught in class 1 before you go to step number 2. So it needs to be really regimented, and that's what we mean. And then milestone-based, meaning, you have quizzes and you have benchmarks in there, and we'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second.
If we can stress anything as a unifying theme with all of the slides we've talked about, it's removing the gut factor. We want things to be systematic so that we can judge objectively. Because when we're in the moment, it's very difficult to be objective. If we set those processes in place ahead of time, it's much easier to adhere to. When we've got that group of trainees, we can identify if someone is engaged and likely to fulfill and be able to execute, rather than waiting 6 months paying somebody for a role they're never going to succeed in. This allows you that.
Yeah, and just so one thing that we learned, when I initially launched Manepture Group, we did all of our sales training live. We still do that, but we actually, it's a different story. We kind of encourage it with a combination of other things, but the point I want to make is we used to do, typical webinar would be an hour long. We realized that this is way too much information to pack into an hour. So a typical hour-long webinar, an hour-long session that you would do, probably should be broken down into 5 or 6 smaller bite-sized pieces. So just to kind of give you a general sort of rule of thumb, if you will.